tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Good morning, everyone. Today we are going to discuss about the Vachi Viññati, which is also a mind-born matter according to Theravada tradition. So far we have discussed basically, because we couldn't do the classes for a few weeks, we have finished discussing about the Chittaja Rūpas, about their basic characteristics, and then the Chittas that produce these Chittaja Rūpas, and also why certain Chittas are not capable of producing Chittaja Rūpas. Then their lineages, Santati, was also discussed, and some Chittas that are exclusive, that also has the capacity of maintaining the bodily postures and also changing the postures that have been already established by previous Chittas. Then we also discussed some consciousness which is capable of producing smile. Then we moved on to explain some physical movements such as dancing, singing, and also the natural process which is happening, which we call breathing, which is also to which the chitta has also a certain influence. Then we explained, taking 2 days, about the Kaya Viññati. So after the Viññati, I was unable to continue my classes as regularly. Today we are going to talk about another intimation, which we call Vachi Viññati. Kaya Viññati is the chitta, is the Rūpa that regulates or modify the behavior of the body. By Kaya Viññati, the Vayo Dhatu, the element of air, which arises based on the intention of the chitta, is regulated or modified or controlled in one sense to be in accordance with the intention of the mind. Therefore, when the person intends to stand up, instead of making another posture, the body happens to stand up. Because with the intention, Chitta Kiriya Vayu Dhatu arises in the relevant body parts, and they are modified by this Viññati according to the intention of the person, intention of the mind. So likewise, the bodily intimation, Vachi Kaya Viññati, modifies the bodily movements. Then there is another Viññati according to the tradition, which modifies the nature of the sound which is produced by the consciousness. As we know, our sounds are produced by our mind, because when we intend to speak, a certain sound is produced. That sound should also be regulated by the mind. Otherwise, we will be uttering some words that are not relevant to our intention. So this would lead to a bizarre situation, because we may be having a different intention and we will be speaking out different words. So it's obvious that the mind and the words that we utter have a huge relationship. So that's why we seldom see that the words that we utter are contradicting with our intention. Actually, it doesn't happen, because sometimes we may have a slip of a tongue, but it doesn't mean like in day-to-day lives we normally tend to speak what we intend. So therefore, we can see a huge correlationship with the words we utter and the intention of the speaker. And we take it as a general norm and accepted phenomena, because the person is responsible for its words. So if someone blames at someone or accuses at someone, these words, though words are different reality other than the mind, even in the legal system, we tend to believe or accept the idea that the words were uttered having thought. So the chitta and the words has a huge relationship. They have a huge relationship. So the person who is speaking, the person who possesses the mind is responsible of his words. So this opens the gate to discuss about this relationship. So what is the reality? What is the Rūpa that regulates this nature of the sound? For example, if I want to say the word I am going home, so this sentence, this lineage of word, the group of words that I have uttered they are in relationship with my intention. So it doesn't mean that I truly have an intention to go home. What is meant here is I had the intention to speak out the words I am going home. So this doesn't indicate always, the sound always doesn't indicate the actual intention of the doer. That's why we can lie. That's why we can mislead others. We may have a different intention, but we may speak out some other words. But the intention to utter those particular words has to be there. So if I was intending to say, now think if I'm teaching a grammar lesson, I'm analyzing the sentence, I am going home, or I want to go home. So there is an auxiliary verb, there is a subject, there is a verb, so and there is an object of the direction. So when we are analyzing this word, this sentence, first I need to say it. It doesn't show. Some may believe, in some occasions we express our actual desires. So in that sense we can mislead others by lying or saying something that is partially true. That is a different case here. But Vaci Viññatti means it modifies the words according to the intention. The meaning here is the person has the intention to utter those particular words, and those words were uttered in the way he intended. Instead of saying I want to go to the toilet, or I want to go to the village, or I want to sit down, which is completely a different sentence regardless of the meaning, the person said I want to go home. I want to go home. So these two sentences are completely different, and the person had two different intentions. I'm not talking about the intention conveyed or conveyed by the sentence. So otherwise the intention, the listener may have thought that the speaker is having. So it's not the intention we are speaking here. In some occasions, when we want to hurt someone, yes, we may say a very harsh word. So the person had the intention to utter that particular word. At the same time, we can assume the real intention behind this speaking, that he wanted to hurt me. So first we need to differentiate these two intentions. So intention of the underlying intention of the objective of the person is different. The intention to utter a certain particular word is different. So we may have a different objective while we utter a different word. That's what happens in most of the cases in lying. In lying, if someone asks someone what is he intended to doing. For example, someone has snatched into a house. Someone has entered into a house and tried to snatch something or pick something or steal something. And when he was caught, he may say, I was just observing the museum, or I just came into the house, and he could lie about his intentions. So in that sense, his viññatti, what the viññatti has done is, it has modified the word according to his intention. What he wanted to say, he wanted to mislead the other people. So instead of saying I came to steal, he is telling that I came just to observe the house. But in that case even, viññāti is present, it modified the words as the person wanted to utter, right? So that is the intention behind viññāti. So vaci viññāti is the rūpa which modifies the sound. So chitta is here. With the chitta, sound is saddha is produced. Sound in Pali we call saddha. No, DDH is the faith, saddha. And this viññāti, vaci viññāti, which arises together with sound, modifies this. It modifies. What is the modification? It makes the sound to appear or arise in accordance with the person's intention. So instead of now, when the person had the intention to say, I go home, instead of saying, I want to sit, the proper words were uttered based on the person's intention. So viññāti did this modification. So that is the basic explanation. When the person is speaking out sounds, those sounds happen according to the person's intention. If the chitta wanted to say, I want to stand up, the sound also says, I want to stand up. Then this viññāti modifies the sound. That is the basic explanation. But this explanation, this mechanism has lots of complicated issues that need to be discussed. So that we are going to attempt this maybe this week and another lesson. So because it's the information is very vast, and there are contradictions, there are disagreements between the commentators and some sub-commentators. Now this is the basic idea. So viññāti helps because listening the person's, listening the sound, we will be able to guess the person's intention. But sometimes there can be misleading statements. Even in a misleading statement, we can still understand the person had the intention to speak those words. Still we understand his some sort of intention, because person may have always, when he is uttering a sound, there is an intention to utter those sounds. So that intention we cannot deny. We cannot deny that. Even that's why a person who is uttering false, saying a lie, is still responsible for his life because he had the intention to utter those words. Then the question comes whether he was aware that the statement referred by those words are true or false. If he did it knowingly, then we say you have lied, right? Because he had the intention to say some words, and those words did not correspond with the reality. It's against the reality. So his intention was not admirable because he was misleading the listener. Then with this, at the same time, the person may have a hidden intention. Hidden means his actual intention. What another type of intention? So what did he actually want? What did he meant? For example, if he says, I want to kill you, right? I want to kill you. So he had the intention to utter these words, obviously. Even we say it for a joke, still there should be intention of uttering those particular words. Then the next point is the real intention. Did he actually meant that? The intention, the basic intention, I would call basic or secondary, whatever, right? The intention, the actual intention of the person. What did he meant by this? Does he actually want to kill him, or he just want to make a joke, or just indicating another emotion? right? So when someone is making some hilarious jokes, they will say, I want to kill you. Sometimes people do say this. So what was the actual intention? So by listening to these words, we can understand two types of, obviously this intention is present. Intention to utter those particular words. And then based on his appearance and many other conditions, the situation, the history, and we may be able to guess what was his actual intention. Actually, it means what did he actually meant to do what he said with his words. Right? So viññati helps us to understand this, because if this is wrong, if this was not according to the person's intention, we would never have a clue even to understand his actual intention. Actual intention means the hidden intentions, the basic intention. Why did he say so? So if these words, now intention to utter these words, these are basic, this is another intention. Obviously this intention and the words has to collaborate, otherwise there would be no way that we could convey our message. Right? So vaci viññati, what does it do? It modifies the Rūpa according to the intention of the person. This is not that much relevant. But through this, understanding these words, listening to these words, knowing the person's actual intention of what he, understanding his intention that he meant this, and taking many other conditions into consideration, we'll be able to sometimes, most of the cases, we'll be able to guess the person's intention. So this is another point that we need to understand, because with the words, in the physical gestures even, sometimes this happens. For example, someone may give a certain gesture, but it didn't actually mean that, it doesn't mean that he was going to do what he showed with his gesture. So there can be differences between his basic intention and the gesture. So viññati helps us, bridges these intentions with the physical movement or the sound, so we'll be able to understand, we'll be able to guess the person's intention. So therefore, vaci viññati helps us to guess the person's intention through sound. So that modification is called it's called vaci viññati. Then what is the mechanism behind this? There are two different opinions. First we'll go with the opinion that seems to be more logical. So when someone wants to utter a word, now think, this person wants to speak, right? Consider this as a person. There is a vocal area. There's the vocal cord, which we call the windpipe. There's another word for that, trachea or something. So there's a technical word. Normally it's called windpipe as well, where the air comes while we are speaking. So when we intend to speak, air goes up, and then it strikes on the larynx, and then it strikes at different locations in our mind, more vocal area, I would call. So this air, it's the pipe and the air element. Air element. So this air strikes at different places. This air element, at the same time, the body parts such as tongue, teeth, the throat, the palatal. So these parts has to strike against each other. Lips are also used. Only then we'll be able to articulate a proper sound. Articulation involves different parts of the vocal area. and different efforts, different striking, the manner of striking, the strength of the striking. Because certain words, for instance, if you take the Pali alphabet, da and dha, so there are aspirated sounds, voiced, unvoiced sounds. So there are many differences in uttering each word in any language. This is true. So there is a physical involvement, physical movements involved in this activity, especially while striking against each other. At the same time, the air strikes at the relevant parts of the mouth. Yeah, two strikes at relevant parts of the mouth. Now, who is regulating these strikes? Few things we need to understand. So this air is a Rūpa. Air has to strike in different areas, and it's been regulated. I don't think the air, it's easy to, it's difficult to assume that the air is being fully regulated, but still it's possible with the mind. The nature of how much air is coming up and so forth. And then the movement of the limbs of the vocal area. So these are all physical movements. Air is being regulated. Air has to be regulated according to the mind. So how much air is coming up and how it being used in the different areas. How much is sent out of the vocal cord into the vocal cord, and then how the tongue and other parts are being used in articulating words. So these are all physical gestures, physical movement. So we know that we have already studied the physical move. So all these physical movements has to happen according to the intention of the speaker. Otherwise, we will not be uttering the words that we intend. If someone has a physical defect, yes, he or she may not be able to utter the words as they intend. That's a different case. But think about a healthy person who can articulate the words properly. Even in such a person, these body parts, the physical parts, has to behave, have to move according to the intention of the speaker. Otherwise, he or she will be end up uttering something which is irrelevant to the intention. And other person will not be able to get the meaning what the person intended. So therefore, all these physical movements, there is a tongue, there are teeth, there are lips. So physical movements are there. And there is air going up, air movement. A lot of striking is involved. And those strikings have to be regulated or controlled or modified according to the intention. So what is the Rūpa which regulates them, which modifies them? It has to be Kaya Viññati. Because if it is a physical movement or a physical contact, as explained here, surely the Kaya Viññati has to come into the context. You should not mix the functions of the two Viññati. Therefore, while we utter all these bodily movements in the vocal area, stomach and the lungs are being modified by the Kaya Viññati. Then, when these strikes happen, now another thing that we need to analyze is what type of a strike is this? In this air element, what type of Rūpa is present? Obviously, Uttuja Rūpas are there. Uttuja Rūpa means Rūpas produced by the Tejo Dhatu. We haven't studied them in detail yet. That's why those Uttuja Rūpas do come out from our mouth and they start to exist in the outside world. And that is the air that we breathe in actually. It is not a new air that was produced in the stomach or in the lungs, right? Actually, the stomach doesn't. I don't think the air is coming from stomach. It's coming from the lungs actually. So those air are not were the things that we inhale actually. So those are Utthuja Rupas, and we discussed about this matter very clearly when we analyze Anapana, the breathing, the act of breathing. So they contain Utthuja Rupas, obviously. Then when it is coming up, then this statement that I'm going to make also affects the Anapana subject as well. Now, when we are speaking out, seems like when we are making a certain effort, certain Chittaja Rupas are arising in them. Chittaja Rupas. Some Chittaja Rupas has to be present. But with this, then the lesson we discuss in Anapana would also be affected by this fundamental that I am writing here. So because when we were analyzing Anapanasati, Anapana means the breathing, act of breathing, we discussed that it's normally the Utthuja Rupa which goes in and comes out. Goes in and comes out. Then we thought it's better to say that the expansion, the movement, air element which causes the expansion and contraction of the body is better, must be the Anapana, the breathing, if it is a mind-born matter. Now, then the thing came, can't some Chittaja Rupas be arising while we are breathing in and breathing? And I said, actually, yes, it can be, but according to Visuddhimagga, it only contains Chittaja Rupa, and we negated that idea, saying because it's obvious that Utthuja Rupas are coming in, because that's why when we inhale poisonous gases, it affects our entire body. So now we'll take that it's possible to have Chittaja Rupas, obviously, but in the Anapana lesson, we deny, because since the Utthuja Rupas are obvious and the Visuddhimagga says it's only Chittaja Rupas, that is a statement we did not appreciate. So arising of Chittaja Rupas is possible in this process, even in breathing and even while speaking. So Chittaja Rupas seems they are present. Then if we take this air that goes up as Uddangama Vayu, another term that we find in the commentaries, Uddangama Vayu, the Vayu that goes up, flows up, Adogama which flows down. So the Uddangama Vayu contains all four types of Rupa according to Visuddhimagga. So according to this, it may contain Kamaj Rupas and Ahara Rupas as well. Ahara Rupas. Right. So now, this air element, according to Theravada Tradition, contains four types of Rupa. Then, what about the Rupa? This air just cannot make a sound. It has to strike against some hard surface. Only then it can produce a sound. So what are the Rupas found in these body parts? According to Visuddhimagga, they also contain Kammaja, Uttuja, Chittaja and Aharaja. They also contain all four types of Rupa. Only in teeth, the visible part of the teeth, which is above the gum, contains only Utthuja Rupa, according to Theravada teachings. So the root of the teeth contains all four types of Rupa. Now other body parts like tongue and all these all contains all the four types of Rupa. So what is the strike? Four types of Rupas striking against four types of Rupas. So it's a complete striking of two full packages. Four types of Rupas striking against four types of Rupas. So these kalapas, Utuja kalapas, the rupas exist in kalapas, right? So among the 4 types of rupas, what is the rupa which is involved in striking? Basically it is hardness, patavi. Patavi. Patavi can be produced by Utu, Chitta, Kamma and Ahara in both the case, in both the in both types of rupas. So Patavi is ultimate reality, and it may have it may be produced by four causes, 4 types of causes. Now Patavi of these air element means it's abundant air is there, but rupas arise in clusters, right? So every kalapa has some sort of Patavi and so forth. So Patavi of these rupas strike with the Patavi of these rupas. That's how the striking happens. Now, it's a Patavi strike. Patavi produced by all 4 types of kalapa, or all 4 types of causes. So when this striking happens, with the striking, sound arises. What type of sound arises? Obviously, when air strikes at a certain surface, sound arises, and we don't need a mind for that. We can see when the air is blowing and it strikes at the trees, against the trees, obviously a sound arises. We can blow air through the flute and sounds arise. Therefore, mere air striking at a surface produces sound. And what type of a sound is this? Due to the striking, Patavi striking against Patavi, sound arises. And this sound is obviously Utuja. Utuja means temperament born, because when a fan is blowing, we get a sound. Sound happens normally when 2 surfaces strike at each other. So when this air is striking on the relevant parts of the vocal area, sounds are produced. Then, at the same time, as the Theravadians put down, there is a Chittaja sound. Sometimes some of these sounds are produced by Chitta as well. So there are Chittaja sounds. Chittaja sounds. Then this opens to another huge discussion. Why it is relevant? How could the Chitta produces just a sound? Could it do that? Could it have happened if there was no strike? How about the Chitta just making a sound without any physical movements, physical contact? No, it's not possible. Otherwise the Arupa beings would also be able to utter sounds. Otherwise we'll be able to utter sounds without making any physical movement. Now, what is the Rupa involved in modifying this contact? It is Kaya Vinyati. Kaya Vinyati modifies how the Rupas are striking against each other. How the tongue is striking on the palatal, on teeth, how the lips are being moved, how much pressure is put in articulating certain sounds. So all these activities are modified by the Kaya Vinyati. It's obvious. It's very obvious. When these strikings happen, a sound is arising, a sound is produced, and that sound, if it happens based on the striking, it's obvious that it should be Utuja Rupas, because the same sounds could be uttered if, for example, make a robot of the same figure of myself and just make this mechanism, air is coming out, and if the body parts are moved as I am doing, surely it will be able to produce the sounds. It is able to produce the sounds. So these sounds that happen due to physical striking has to be Utuja. But the Theravadians brings another type of sound. Chittaja sound is also happening. Then the question comes, can Chitta produce these sounds? Because if it is Chitta, can it produce these sounds without the striking? If you remember, we set a very important fundamental mentioned in the Chitta is capable of producing Rūpas only when there is an existing Kammaja Santati. If there is no Kammaja Santati, already existing Kammaja Santati, Chitta will not be able to produce Rūpa. That is not relevant here actually. Because we are talking about a sound. Yes, obviously Kammaja Santati has to be there for whatever Chitta Rupas to arise. Now we are talking about a certain sound, a certain Rūpa which we call sound is highly related to the manner of striking. Because if you want to label sound, pa, I cannot bring out this sound by just making the tongue striking against the palatal. No. Without using the lips. If I want to utter, I cannot utter word pa with this structure by making the tongue striking against the palatal, the top of the mouth, without using the lips. It's impossible. So, at the same time we say sound is produced by the mind. Then the mind cannot produce this sound if those physical contexts were, the relevant physical contexts were involved. So then what is the purpose of bringing a Chittaja sound into the context? This is a huge problem. The next thing comes with the artificial intelligent creations, robots. Robots are capable of articulating sounds as we humans do. Yes, there is obviously we will be able to distinguish, but some sounds that we see in certain products like iPads or phones, read text functions. Maybe it's taken from a human voice and adjusted. I'm not sure. I'm not aware of the entire function of this, but still, robots will be able to produce sounds. Right? Maybe the human sounds have been input, but they are able of reproducing it. Obviously, they are able of reproducing it. Now, those sounds, there is a slight difference. We'll be able to, a person who with a sharp ear will be able to differentiate whether this is a real person or a robot. Yes, there is a slight change because different material elements are involved. We have carbon and we are living organism. So surely the sound that is produced by making the living organisms touching, like organic parts touching organic parts, would be different from metal strikings or air striking against metal, or it's a different, maybe it's a electromagnetic waves producing something. I'm not sure about this entire function of the sound production, but somehow it's a different mechanism, obviously. So since the mechanism is different, we'll be able to differentiate sounds. We'll be able to identify the origin of the sounds. Yes, but the problem here is it's obvious that the sounds we utter needs the relevant physical contact. If so, why do we say that the sound is produced by Chitta? It's another big question for the Theravada. It's another big question. So till now we said, we came to the, we analyzed, air contains all four types of Rūpa, and these body parts also contains four types of Rūpas, and the striking happens between these Kalapas, and mainly Patavi is striking against Patavi, and we know that it has to happen in a certain manner to utter a certain sound, and this is being regulated by Kaya Viññati, modified by the Kaya Viññati. And obviously when the physical things strike against each other, sound is produced. There has to be Uttuja sound. There's no argument in it. Then at the same time, the Theravadians brings forth another type of a sound, chittaja sound, produced by the mind while we are speaking. Is it only the chittaja sound happening? I personally don't think so. Because when air flows up and if we make the physical movements, we are able to articulate some sounds. It's obvious. Just make a robot without a consciousness and do these relevant movements, surely the sounds will be uttered. Sounds can be heard, sounds can be produced, and that has to be Uttija Rupas. So there is no reason for us to deny the fact that while we are speaking, Uttija Rupas are happening. We cannot deny that fact. But at the same time, Chittaja Rupa is happening. And it is obvious, even though this sound is Chittaja Rupa, it needs physical contact. Without physical contact, we cannot produce sound. Then, what is this involved? Why this is coming into context? So that seems to be where the animate and inanimate difference. A non-living being, non-living thing, like a robot, will be able to articulate sounds without the consciousness, and we as living beings are also capable of articulating sounds. In our body, Uttija sounds do arise. At the same time, mind is also producing some type of a sound, only which happens while the physical contact is there. It's very difficult to explain why that sound is happening, why it is relevant. Anyway, that sound, while the Uttija sounds are happening, Chittaja sounds are regulated by something called Viññati. Maybe because of these sounds we get that living attribute in our sounds. We'll be able to differentiate whether it's an actual living being or not. Then this leads to a debate. So are we able to differentiate a robot speaking and an actual living being speaking? Is it because of Viññati or Chitta? Is it because of they are producing Chittaja sounds, or is it because two organic body parts are touching each other and producing this sound? So because based on the contact, the nature of the things that contact each other, obviously the sound produced is different. So when we are listening to a human speaking and some other thing, a metal striking each other and producing a sound, we obviously understand there are two different sounds. Is it because of the Chittaja Rupas present in the human sound, or is it because in human sound is produced by organic body parts touching each other, while in the other occasion it is a different metal or different material striking each other. So this is another way to look in this. I am not unable to explain this, give an answer for this. So there are huge questions when we explain this process of the Vaci Viññati. So according to the tradition, Chittaja sound is produced in the relevant parts of the vocal area, and those Chittaja sounds are modified by Viññati. So if we try to analyze this a bit further, now air element, air kalapas coming up and striking on the four types of kalapas in the vocal area. This is the rupas found in tongue and all this, and the striking happens. When the striking happens, Uttija sounds arise. Uttija sound, and this striking is modified by Viññati, Kaya Viññati. Kaya Viññati modifies this striking. Uttija Rupas arise based on this modification. At the same time, as Theravadians claim, Chittaja sounds are also happening. Chittaja Saddha, Utuja Saddha. And these Chittaja Saddha are modified according to the intention of the speaker by Vachi Viññati. By Vachi Viññati. So this is the explanation found in, based on the explanation. This is explanation is based on what is explained in Paramattha Dipani. The commentary has a different opinion on this. I shall discuss it next week. Right? I just don't want to bring all the information in one lecture. So this is how Vachi Viññati is explained in Paramattha Dipani. And what are the main points here? Air coming up through the windpipe and striking in the vocal areas of the mouth, or the vocal area, physical parts of the vocal area. And those movements, there are a lot of movements involved in it. Striking, the manner of striking, all these are modified by Kaya Viññati. Because the function of Kaya Viññati is to regulate these bodily functions. When they are striking, and what type of rupas are involved there? All 4 types of rupa in the air and also in the body parts. And the Patavi Dhatu is involved in the striking. So based on the nature of striking, obviously Utuja Rupas are arising. Utuja Rupas are arising there. Then at the same time, Theravadians say Chittaja Rupas also arise at that moment. And those Chittaja Rupas, and it's also obvious that without the physical, if Chittaja Rupas are arising, taking this as a fact in the Theravada teaching, those Chittaja Rupas need the physical contact. Otherwise, we'll be able to utter words without moving our limbs, without making any verbal gestures in the mouth or the vocal area. Then, ironically, Chittaja Rupas are happening, yes, with the contact. They are not Utuja, they are Chittaja, but in a inanimate physical robot. With this same process, in the same process, air coming up and striking against the rupas in the vocal area, striking, only, there's no Viññati actually involved also, Viññati, Utuja sounds are happening. The same thing can be done without the involvement of Kaya Viññati and Chittaja sounds with Vachi Viññati. Only Utuja sounds are present. Yes, here's also there are Utuja sounds, and there's a contact. The striking is there. So this is what is missing in a inanimate robot. If we produce the sound in the same process as it happens while we are speaking. So what the Theravadians are saying, the chitta is involved. Now chitta comes into the context. Chitta is producing this Kaya Viññati, so the contacts happen accordingly. And it is also directly producing Chittaja sound. And those Chittaja sounds are modified by the Viññati, Vachi Viññati. Then the question comes, why it is relevant, why it is necessary. And this is how it is being explained. And maybe that is the reason, that is the element that brings the liveness to our speech, while that liveness is absent in the speech of inanimate robots and so forth. Or then the question comes, isn't it because of living organism, organic parts touching each other, or is it because of the presence of Chittaja Rupa? Yes. So this Viññati, now when we are hearing the sound, what type of sound we are hearing? According to this explanation, we should be hearing Utuja sound and Chittaja sound both, the speaker. Speaker should be hearing both sounds. Maybe that's the reason while there are some, obviously when we are speaking, for instance, think, when we are speaking, if we have phlegm in our throats, if our vocal cords are damaged or something some elements are found there and not helpful for sweet speech. We can see some changes in the voice. Obviously, we can understand, the listener can see there is some some characteristics of the sound that are not relevant to the intention of the speaker, and they are utterly based on the physical status of the vocal area. Then we understand, then we give them step stills to clear the throat. So all these sounds indicate that Uttuja Rūpa is produced. Obviously, Uttuja Rūpa has to be produced. There's no argument in it. But at the same time, as the Theravadians claim, Chittaja Rūpas, Chittaja sounds are also produced. And those Chittaja sounds are modified by Vachi Viññati based on the consciousness. Then how about these Uttuja sounds? Are they also modified based on Chitta? Yes. In a longer process. Chitta produces Kaya Viññati, so the contact happens based on the intention, how the intention of based on the intention about what to speak, and these contacts produce Uttuja Rūpas. Then they correspond to the Kaya Viññati and the way of striking, which is produced by the Chitta. So even these Uttuja Rūpas also, in one sense, convey the intention of the speaker. But these Chittaja sounds, Uttuja sounds are also related to the intention of the speaker, because those movements were made based on the Vachi Viññati. And Vachi Viññati is regulated by the consciousness. So those Uttuja sounds also correspond to our consciousness. Then the question comes, why it is, if it could be done with such a process, why Chittaja sounds are arising? Yes, sometimes according to the Theravada teachings, now think about, we haven't done yet. Vitakka. Some commentators say, now the function of vitakka is to ascend to an object, at the same time bring the entire mind to the object. But some commentators say the consciousness itself has the capacity to ascend to the object without vitakka, with the help of manasikara and so forth. What vitakka is doing, when vitakka is present, the mental cluster becomes capable, very much capable of ascending. But even without vitakka, it's capable of going into the object. So that's why avitakka chittas can ascend. This is one opinion of a commentator. There are different three opinions how our consciousness without vitakka could ascend to object. Now, the same way, the intention of the speaker could have been conveyed through Kaya Viññati, regulating the physical contact and producing Uttuja sounds. Could have been done. That's why a robot can speak. At the same time, Chittaja Rūpa, Chitta is producing Chittaja sounds which are directly regulated by Vachi Viññati. So this is how the mechanism has to be explained. Now next day we are going to explain what is the explanation given in the commentaries about this, and what are the disagreements, and which approach seems to be more accurate. Okay, so I'll conclude my lecture, and this also shows, when we analyze it in this manner, we understand how much non-self. There's no self involved here. Just there's a consciousness, viññati, rūpa, sound is completely something new, happening due to a contact of other rūpas. When you analyze this is in one sense doing vipassana. Vipassana is a knowledge, understanding based on thinking. It's obviously, that's how Lady Sayadaw puts this, and it's obviously according to the Nettipakarana. Based on the knowledge that your Sutame Jnana, you kept on contemplating. There's a wrong understanding among the present practitioners that it has to be direct knowledge. No, what you do is contemplating. When we contemplate, having known the characteristics of the realities, when you start to contemplate, the wisdom arises. understanding arises. That is the vipassana jnana. It has to come naturally. So what we do is we keep on contemplating. We keep on contemplating. And that's been explained in Visuddhi Magga. That's been explained by all the learned sayadus of the Theravada teachings. There can be some techniques that you keep on observing the present object. It's not necessarily the vipassana has to be present object. It's a wrong information. If it is done in the present object, it's okay, better. If it can be done at the present moment, yes, that doesn't contradict with the tradition. But if someone says it has to be the present object, it has to be the present, is a wrong statement. And if someone says it has to be direct, that you have to see it as it is in the body, what is happening there, that's also a claim beyond the Theravada explanations. What is necessary is we understand the reality, the nature of the reality based on the Suttame Jnana, and then we develop the contemplation. Contemplation, in simple words, thinking. But first one has to grab the essence of the reality. The intrinsic nature has to be captured. That's what the Netti says, Netti Pakarana and his commentary. Without understanding the intrinsic characteristic, no vipassana is possible. If someone has understood the intrinsic characteristic, yes, he can spread his vipassana into any time, past, present, future, or possibilities. All that, these are possible. This is also very well explained in Anatta Deepa Nivaledi. It has been explained by the commentators in various parts of the commentaries. So when we keep on contemplating, knowing the intrinsic nature, we develop these non-self ideas, non-self understanding. That's why the learnedness is so much helpful. Buddha has mentioned it as the weaponry of a city. So this, because of this, now we can see the four great elements, strike in the four great elements. We can imagine this. Imagine in Vipassana, imagination is very, very vital. It's very vital. But imagination has to be based on the intrinsic nature of the realities. Intrinsic nature of the realities. So that's why it is mentioned in the commentary of Digha Nikaya. You do walking meditation, how the elements change while walking or while sitting. Possible. It's been uttered by one of the great arahants of our tradition, Venerable Mahasiva in the ancient Anuradhapura. One of the 7 great arahants who appeared in Sri Lanka and mentioned in the commentaries, who practiced together with the Bodhisattva, they claim. You do vipassana while walking, or have walked. You contemplate how the elements change while walking, or whenever we are walking. But the person has to know the intrinsic characteristic of hardness, element, and all this. Consciousness. If not, no, not possible. If not, not possible. Even you cannot do a present moment vipassana, right? We know that according to Abhidhamma. When you know the object through 5 senses, vipassana jnana cannot happen at that moment because it's against the vibhanga. Vipassana jnana cannot happen during a 5-door sense process. It has to happen in the mind. So always we are doing a past vipassana. Unless we do a present moment Rūpa through the mind, if it comes through the 5 senses, if you feel the touch, if you feel the pain, it's always a past object. Never a vipassana can happen through the 5 senses in the present moment. It's against the Abhidhamma. It always happens at the past moment as a past object. So then sometimes we take the past objects, sometimes we take the possible objects. Samanya aramana. Atita anagata pachuppanna samanya. That is the normal vipassana we do when Buddha said in Chittanupassana, Bahidna Chittanupassana, which is found in the Satipatthana Sutta. Bahidda vipassana is contemplating on others' minds. Bahidda. A person who doesn't, most of the yogis doesn't have the ability to read others' minds. So based on the experience that we have on our mind, yogis assume this is how the mind of another being is active, present, working. That contemplation itself sometimes, but one has to do both external and internal. One cannot just get liberated by only contemplating on internal or just contemplating on external. Time to time both has to be done. It's a fundamental of Theravada Vipassana. So if that relevant Vipassana of contemplating on others' minds, one can attain Magga, get enlightened while contemplating on it. It's just an assumption, imagination. The same way, all the four great elements, entire process of life can be imagined and contemplated. Can be imagined and contemplated. So therefore, learning in this level, when we contemplate based on this knowledge how these processes are happening, this opens the door for non-selfness. If someone is capable of contemplating under this, in this manner, having touched the intrinsic natures of the realities, this is a path, and it could also lead for some to the enlightenment, if the faculties are good enough. Yes, so this also opens the gate, showing that these are different realities. If we happen to contemplate them differently, yes, self is the idea of a one person called I. There is no I who is speaking. Sound is a different element which happens based on this mechanism. So there is no I who is speaking. That is the underlying message that we want to convey through these kind of lessons. Yes, so hope you enjoyed it, and next day I'll be doing how the commentaries explain this phenomena. So I'll give you the opportunity to ask questions.
May I ask my question, sir? My question is now when we hear the sounds when someone speaks, when we want to say something to us, we can understand not hearing the sound only. In a noisy environment, if we can't hear the sound, we can understand what he's saying, watching at the formation of his lips, various formations. And is it vocal intimation or
physical
bodily intimation?
Bodily. Because lip reading, right? Especially this is done in the royal family, right? British royal family, because when paparazzis from far away, they do lip reading and says this is what the prince or the king said. Something called lip reading in diplomatic discussions, from when the photographers or media are not allowed to record their speaking words, they try to understand what the diplomats were saying. This is purely understanding the vachi vinyati, kaya vinyati, I would say, because it's a good point that you brought up. Physical movements are always made by kaya vinyati. Paramattha Dipani clearly states this. Do not mix the functions of kaya vinyati and vachi vinyati. These are two different things. Lips are being moved by vachi kaya vinyati, and tongue is being moved by kaya vinyati. It's not that only if it is vachi vinyati, what happens is kaya vinyati is involved in all the other body parts except the vocal area. No, that's not how it should be explained. So kaya vinyati is what involves in all these physical activities. So if someone is reading the lips, based on our past classes, through our experience, if the lips are moved in this way, this should be the words that are being uttered from far away. One is capable of assuming what was the words that would have been uttered. Yes, so it's a vachi vinyati actually. And this is also a good reason to understand that the physical movements which we make while speaking are made by Vachi Vinyati, Kaya Vinyati, sorry, Kaya Vinyati.
Okay, thank you very much. Theravada
Okay.
I'm serious.
Okay, I can see it's very far here. Okay.
I missed today's lecture. I'm very sorry for that because last few Sundays the lectures were not there. So I assume that it is not there today as well. So I'll listen to it later and probably we will meet tomorrow because tomorrow I'll be in Kalgoorlie as well.
Okay.
So I will try to ask you. But actually my question is about your last lecture. In your last lecture, you were saying that how the Vachi Vinyati and Chitta Kiriya Dhatu, Chitta Kiriya Vayo Dhatu that is created by the Chetana.
Kaya Vinyati, right? Kaya Vinyati, right?
Yes, Kaya Vinyati. Chitta Kiriya Vayo Dhatu and the Kaya Vinyati. How can Kaya Vinyati move the body kind of question is what you, I mean, you show that there is some problem there. Am I right?
So, according to science, right?
Yes. So later I was doing a little bit of reading on this and I found out Rerukani Hamdro explains it slightly differently. What I understood was the Chitta Kiriya Vayo Dhatu is itself is a Rūpa Kalapa which has a 17 mind movements. Whereas Kaya Vinyati is a single mind movement Rūpa Kalapa. So what is first happening is with the Chetana you will create so many, I think in your lecture you explained that very clearly, throughout the whole body, Chitta Kiriya Vayo Dhatu will be created. Those Rūpa Kalapas will be created. Then the gradual movement is what is actually driven by the Kaya Vinyati on a momentary basis. So that is why we see a continuous movement rather than that Santati Gane really happens with the Kaya Vinyati, but the movement really is driven by Kaya Vinyati. That is the understanding I got. I may be wrong. So today I thought I will ask you that question if you don't mind to get an explanation.
No, what I explained is not against the Rerukani Sanas. It's completely with it, because what Rerukani Sanas is saying. Vachi, Chitta Rupas are produced, Chitta Kiriya Vayo Dhatu is produced by the consciousness. In the very first mind moment, it contains Kaya Vinyati. He never says that it is produced at the later stage, no. So when the Chitta Rupa is produces together with the Kaya Vinyati, and the Kaya Vinyati disappears after one mind moment, while the Chitta Kiriya Vayo Dhatu can stay for another 16 mind moments. That's what is mentioned there, because it's a very basic fundamental, even in his book and also in every commentaries. There's no disagreement in there. So
yeah, that is fine.
Right.
So that is no problem. But what actually probably this is what came to my mind after reading it. Isn't Vachi Kaya Vinyati going to be produced continuously in that
Kalapa? No. In different kala, because every chitta produces different rupas. Actually, Javana chittas, 7 Javana chittas, including the Manodvara Vajana and 7 Javanas produce rupas. Every chitta produces rupas, and every chitta produces vinyati with it, but they disappear together with the chitta. So after the 7th Javana also produces the next moment, Tadalambana moment, for example. At the Tadalambana moment, there is no vinyati in the body.
Yeah, that is also fine for me. But the Chitta Kiriya Vayo Dhatu Rūpa that was produced with the first Javana, let's say, will last even when the Tadalambana takes place.
Yes, that's what I explained. Yes.
Yeah. So then there is a possibility of that being driven by the subsequent.
No, there is no chitta producing viññati after 7 javana.
Not the 7 javanas, but within that 7 javana, the first javana is only one mind moment. The second javana is also one mind moment. The kaya viññati is also produced by those javanas are one mind moment.
Yeah.
So though that disappears, there's another kaya viññati.
After seventh javana, there is no kaya viññati.
Yeah, that's fine. That is no problem. But with the subsequent kaya viññati, cannot it have a pachajata effect on the previously produced Chittakiriya Vayudhatu?
Can. Not even Chittakiriya Vayudhatu, it has the effect on the entire body. That's why we explained the explanation, the simile, when log is flowing in the water, if there is a tree on it, that tree also flows. So it shows that not only the previous Chittakiriya Vayudhatus, but the entire body behaves based on it's not yeah.
So then my question is really, why did you say the mind cannot move the body? I mean, what is the connection? Scientifically, as we cannot explain, but with this Dharma explanation, I thought that is a complete explanation.
No, what I said is, it's not practically cannot be explained. How the mind is producing Rūpa, change in the body, according to Theravada fundamentals, it's okay. That's what I said. But practically, I don't think there's an explanation how the immaterial thing could change the material thing.
Yeah, that will agree. Because anyway, I mean, Abhidharma cannot be compared with the current scientific knowledge. Because current scientific knowledge is still behind what we learn in Abhidharma. So with that, I have no problem at all. But I was trying to understand why you said...
I said it because there is no practical explanation for this. It's just that we are saying consciousness, because of consciousness, Rūpa behaves, and consciousness is capable of changing the Rūpa. That's just the explanation. That's just a statement. It's not. There is no way to prove. Prove means give a logical explanation that many would accept unanimously. If we say, because it's based on the Theravada fundamentals, obviously the question would come is, how could Chitta produce Viññati in Chittaja Rūpa? And how could Chittaja Rūpa happens because of a consciousness? These are the two questions that would objectively person who is having objective stance would ask. So that's the question I am raising. According to Theravada fundamentals, there is no problem, because our fundamentals are based on the direct observation. It's not based on any logic or anything. So when the intention is there, the body moves, then we postulate there is a relationship between the mind and the body. How this could be explained logically, even within the tradition, there is no explanation. It just says it arises, that's all. Only through the observation we can see that.
Yeah, yes and no, because as long as Theravada, according to Theravada, if that explanation is, and I can take that explanation as Buddha, because I believe more in Theravada than.
That's why in the end it's preference, Mr. Hitsiri. It's personal preference in the end. That's what happens in materialism and dualism. There is a big argument about the zombie. Zombie means whether a zombie is possible or not. So dualist would say zombie is possible. The materialist would say zombie is not possible. Zombie means not the ones who eat the brains as in Hollywood movies. Zombie is a complete philosophical zombie, means a complete counterpart of myself, completely behaving as I do, but without a qualia, without the experience, conscious experience. So is it possible? So dualist, now the question is, if we are able to make all the cells of myself, cells in my body as they are identically, reproduce them as a replica, how would now no one will be able to distinguish it physically, same physical structure in another place with all the neurons and all. The question is, it's behaving like a robot. Think about a robot. With a high tech, we are able to create a robot with all the physical attributes of myself. It is behaving as I do, but is it having a conscious experience? If someone says no, it cannot have a conscious experience, because consciousness has to come with in a lineage, and it has to have the previous consciousness, as in Abhidhamma. Yes, the dualist, especially the Buddhist, would say, even Dalai Lama says, according to what he has mentioned, he hasn't talked about this, I haven't seen him talking about this incident, but he says, no, it's not, it's physicalism. If it is physicalism, he cannot accept. Even evolution he rejects because of physicalism. So dualists would say, no, there cannot be a consciousness. There cannot be an idea, consciousness cannot arise in such a way. But a physicalist would say, yes, if you are able to create the entire structure as it is in another place, the consciousness has to arise. So how would the philosophers would put this? Yes, if you think, if you feel, because this has not been proven, and I don't think it can be put into a proving context, because it's a hypothetical thought experiment. So if someone feels the zombie is possible, the zombie could act as I do without a conscious experience, then you are a dualist. If you believe, if you feel, if you prefer to believe that if a zombie is created, that would have the same conscious experience as I do, then you are a physicalist. So then in the end they say, doesn't matter. In the end, when you go into these deep philosophical issues, objectively speaking, what matters in the end is preference. The personal preference, personal understanding, personal experiences and spiritual experiences, whatever. So in Buddhism, even in Buddhism, in the end, objectively speaking, subjectively within the Theravada tradition, this statement is not valid. Looking it in an outside perspective, from outside perspective, yes, it's preference. Preference means, for example, one would say, I have seen the rebirth, I have seen the consciousness, I have seen this happen rising and falling. Then it's still Pachattam Veditabbo. It's our own experience, preference, or own understanding, knowledge, and so forth. So that is not an issue, that's not a problem. But as a speaker who is speaking to a larger audience, what I do is I speak within the tradition. At the same time, I bring the perspective from an objective standpoint as well, not throughout the entire lecture, when it is relevant. When it is relevant, when it is contradicting in the present knowledge of the world, so I bring this thing and says, so according to what I have studied, what I have known, there is no explanation whatsoever to show that the mind can move the body, objectively speaking. But within the tradition, yes, that is perfectly no issue at all.
Yeah, thank you very much. Now I understand the context in which you made that statement. So, I would like to ask one small thing. This is about Theravada, and based on that, when a person dies, a perfectly functioning body stops. It's completely the physical functioning, and that happens. So what is lacking there is really the consciousness.
Yes.
Because the body, to physical measurements, even the body temperature can be there, even after a few minutes, until the body really starts decay. So, so that is a good enough proof to say that consciousness is the one which really moves body parts.
To you, okay. But objectively, they would not accept that in the world anyway. So yes, that's also one reason for I would say for us to see the difference. Yes, I understand that. That's okay. That's okay. Don't take it personal. I'm talking objectively sometimes.
That's all right.
If anyone, any other question? Okay, so then we'll conclude the lecture today. So today we had an introduction on Vachi Vinyati, and now next day we'll be talking the opinion of the commentators about this same reality. Okay. Buddha Sasanang, so may this merit help us to attain all wholesome goals and finally attain the Nibbana, and also may this help to sustain the Buddha Sasana. Buddha Sasanang Chirantittatu, Buddha Sasanang Chirantittatu, Buddha Sasanang Chirantittatu, Sadhu, Sadhu, Sadhu.